The spiritual and the evil padlock and keys. The Expository Part 1.
The padlock and the key. The locked self and the unlocked world. The paradox of the padlock. The padlock is a quintessential emblem of security. From safeguarding personal possessions to fortifying fortresses, its primary function is to create a physical barrier, an impenetrable demarcation between what is accessible and what remains hidden. Yet, throughout human history, this simple mechanical device has transcended its utilitarian purpose to become a profound cultural and spiritual symbol. It embodies a complex duality, representing both protection and confinement, liberation and cage, as well as enduring commitment and irreversible separation. The paradox of the padlock is that its power lies not merely in its physical function, but in its ability to give tangible form to abstract human desires and fears, for security, control, permanence, and the unlocking of one's destiny. This multifaceted symbolism, charting the padlock's journey from its ancient origins in religious lore to its role in modern rituals and esoteric practices, ultimately revealing how it serves as a tangible link between the material and metaphysical worlds. Padlocks and keys in ancient and religious lore. The symbolic power of the lock and key is deeply rooted in the historical evolution of these objects, which began as tools for safeguarding the physical world and were subsequently elevated to represent control over the spiritual and unseen. This transition from the mundane to the divine established a foundational vocabulary for their use in myth, religion, and folklore. The lock as a guardian of the sacred and profane. Since antiquity, the lock has been recognized as a guardian of what is most valuable. In ancient Egypt, locks were used to secure tombs and treasures, an act that reflected not only a practical need for security, but also a belief in the sanctity of the afterlife and the importance of preserving wealth for the spiritual journey beyond death. The intricate designs of these early locks were an extension of the civilization's artistry, suggesting that the object itself held a significance beyond its function. As societies evolved, so too did the symbolism of the lock. During medieval Europe's feudal era, the development of sophisticated lock mechanisms on castles and fortresses became a potent symbol of the power and authority of the ruling elite. The possession of a key was a mark of status, granting access to coveted spaces and resources. This practice of using locks to delineate social hierarchy and authority continued into the protection of intellectual and spiritual treasures. Ancient monastic libraries, for instance, used iron-bound chests and locks to safeguard their valuable texts and relics, recognizing that what was intangible, knowledge, wisdom, and sacred teachings, was as precious as any material possession. This extension of the lock's purpose from protecting physical wealth to protecting spiritual wisdom demonstrates a core principle of its symbolic power. It is a cultural icon that represents a value system. What is deemed worthy of a barrier is what is most revered, whether tangible or intangible. The lock's primary symbolic function is therefore derived directly from its literal function of separation and protection. The physical barrier it creates becomes a perfect metaphor for a spiritual or intellectual one, endowing the act of locking with a sacred quality. This suggests that as human societies began to value abstract concepts, they ritualistically used physical objects to manifest and protect them. The key to authority, knowledge, and fate. While the lock represents the barrier, the key holds a distinct and often greater symbolic weight. It is the instrument of access and control, and its spiritual significance is deeply embedded in the myths and religious narratives of various cultures. In ancient Rome, the key was associated with the god Janus, who was believed to hold the keys to the gates of heaven, symbolizing the authority to begin and end things. Similarly, the goddess Hecate, a deity of magic and crossroads, was often depicted with keys, representing her control over passageways between both physical and spiritual worlds. This potent symbolism is most famously represented in Christian iconography. The Apostle Peter is almost universally shown holding the keys to the kingdom of heaven. This image is a direct representation of Jesus' declaration that Peter would be given the authority to bind on earth and loose in heaven. The keys here symbolize not just the ability to open a door, but the divine power to grant or deny spiritual access, to dictate teachings and practices, and to lead followers toward salvation. Similarly, the book of Revelation describes Jesus as the one who holds the key of David, a symbol of his supreme authority to open what no one can shut and to shut what no one can open, thereby securing and protecting his followers from evil. The key's symbolic power is one of a perfect counterpoint to the locks. While the lock represents the challenge, the key embodies the solution. It is the physical means to overcome the barrier. The person who holds the key dictates who enters and who is barred, revealing a fundamental power dynamic projected onto divine and religious figures. This duality, of both inclusion and exclusion, is central to its spiritual meaning. The existence of the locked mystery necessitates the invention of the symbolic key, which represents not just a tool, but a token of trust, honor, and destiny. It is the physical embodiment of the means to access hidden knowledge, new opportunities, or truths, folklore, and the locked secret. In folklore and mythology, the lock moves beyond a mere symbol to become a critical narrative device, a physical representation of abstract taboos and moral dilemmas. The act of unlocking becomes the inciting incident that unleashes a series of consequences, often illustrating that not all knowledge is meant to be easily acquired. A prime example is the Italian fairy tale Lo Catenaccio, the padlock. In this tale, a young woman marries an enchanted man who has a padlock on his body. Tempted by her mother and sisters, she uses a candle to find and open the padlock while he sleeps. Her act of betrayal breaks the spell and causes her to lose her husband, forcing her on a long and perilous journey to win him back. This narrative is related to other myths of forbidden chambers, such as the story of Bluebeard, where a locked room contains a dark secret that the protagonist is forbidden from uncovering. These tales establish a causal relationship between the act of unlocking and the ensuing consequences. The lock is not just a tool for security, but a moral and spiritual gatekeeper. It teaches that some secrets are locked for a reason, and the path to knowledge should be a test of character and courage. The existence of such a story and its repeated retelling across generations suggests a cultural need to warn against violating certain sacred boundaries. By making an abstract concept, like the integrity of a vow or the danger of curiosity, tangible through a physical object, the story powerfully reinforces the lock's spiritual role as a guardian of truths. The global ritual of the love lock. The spiritual significance of the padlock finds its most widespread modern expression in the global phenomenon of the love lock. This ritual, which appears to be a contemporary invention, is in fact a reenactment of deeply embedded human desires for permanence and public declaration. The love lock tradition is said to have originated from a tragic Serbian legend dating back to World War I. The story tells of a young schoolteacher named Nada, who fell in love with a Serbian officer, Relja. They became engaged, and Relja went to war in Greece, promising to return to her. However, he fell in love with a local woman and broke his promise, causing Nada to die of a broken heart. In an attempt to protect themselves from a similar fate, the women of Nada's town, Vrnjačka Banja, began a new ritual. They would write their names and their lovers' names on padlocks, attach them to the bridge where Nada and Relja had met, and throw the key into the river. This practice remained a local custom for decades until it was reignited and spread globally in the early 2000s, largely spurred by the popularity of the Italian romantic novel Ho voglia di te. The novel featured a scene in which a couple affixes a padlock to Rome's Ponte Milvio Bridge and discards the key. This fictional act resonated with a modern audience, transforming a small-town tragedy into a global phenomenon seen on bridges and monuments from Paris to Seoul. While some sources also point to a much older, possibly ancient Chinese or medieval European origin, the Serbian legend provides a powerful emotional foundation, imbuing the ritual with a purpose beyond a mere celebration of love. It serves as a public ward against its loss. The proliferation of the practice demonstrates the power of popular culture to disseminate and legitimize new rituals on a global scale. The unbreakable bond, ritual and symbolism. The core of the love lock ritual is a powerful symbolic act. It typically involves a couple writing their names or initials and a significant date on a padlock, affixing it to a public structure, and then discarding the key. This sequence of actions creates a public declaration of love, a tangible record of a cherished moment in time. The act of locking the padlock symbolizes an unbreakable bond, representing the strength and permanence of the couple's commitment. It is a public, material manifestation of an abstract emotion, and creating a physical anchor for a relationship. The act functions as a modern form of sympathetic magic, where a physical act is believed to produce a spiritual effect, in this case, ensuring the longevity of the love. The love lock is considered an emotional object that acquires its value not from its material cost, but from the emotional context and memory it holds. It is a slice of immortality, a way for individuals to leave a lasting mark on the world. The most potent gesture within the ritual is the discarding of the key. Whether thrown into a river or buried, this action signifies an irreversible commitment. It is a bold statement that the couple intends to never unlock their love, and that they don't even need an escape plan. This public, irreversible gesture reflects a modern longing for certainty and permanence in a world often defined by transience. The act of discarding the key gives the ritual its finality and its most profound symbolic weight, representing a leap of faith and an irreversible investment in the future of the relationship. The weight of vows, a modern-day conflict. The very permanence that gives the love lock ritual its symbolic power has become its greatest flaw. As the practice scaled from a local tradition to a global phenomenon, the cumulative effect of these small, individual gestures has created significant problems for public safety, cultural heritage, and the environment. The sheer weight of the padlocks has led to structural damage on bridges and other monuments around the world. In Paris, the Pont des Arts footbridge partially collapsed under the weight of an estimated 45 to 65 tons of locks. In Melbourne, 20,000 locks were removed after cables began to sag under the extra weight. Beyond the structural concerns, the locks are often viewed as vandalism, defacing historic and scenic locations and interfering with their visual appeal. The metal of the locks can also cause galvanic corrosion on iron bridges, leading to rust damage. Furthermore, the ritual's critical final step, the discarding of the key, has created environmental pollution. It is estimated that millions of rusted keys lie at the bottom of rivers like the Seine. In the Grand Canyon, discarded keys have posed a direct threat to endangered condors, which are drawn to shiny objects and can die from ingesting the metal. In response, cities worldwide have taken action, classifying the practice as a misdemeanor and imposing fines. Authorities in cities from Dublin to Florence have initiated mass removal campaigns to protect historic structures and the environment. Some cities have attempted to accommodate the ritual by creating alternative, purpose-built structures, such as the love lock trees in Seoul and Moscow, offering a safe and sustainable way for couples to participate without damaging public property. The controversy surrounding love locks highlights a central tension between individual emotional expression and collective public responsibility. The same personal act meant to ensure the locked self and the unlocked world. Permanence is what leads to the lock's eventual removal, revealing a profound irony. The symbolic power of the object, derived from its material nature, is ultimately undermined by its material limitations when scaled to a global level. A personal ritual's meaning can be corrupted by its collective scale. The padlock in contemporary spiritual and esoteric practice. Beyond the public ritual of the love lock, padlocks and keys are used in more explicitly spiritual and esoteric contexts, often for purposes far removed from romance. Their core function, the ability to bind and secure, is leveraged for both malevolent and benevolent ends, demonstrating the object's symbolic duality. The padlock of spiritual bond and malevolent use. In certain spiritual traditions, particularly within some African and Christian belief systems, the padlock is seen as a powerful tool for malevolent purposes. It is conceptualized as a spiritual padlock used by wicked ones to hinder a person's destiny, health, business, or prosperity. This is an inversion of the love lock's purpose. The object's power to bind is exploited to cause confinement rather than commitment. These practices often involve a physical padlock that acts as a tangible anchor for a spiritual curse or act of witchcraft. For instance, a report from an evangelical tour describes a prophet who used a padlock to lock two pictures of a male and female together, with the intention of manipulating the woman's life and marriage. The spiritual effect of the ritual, the woman suddenly leaving her fiancé and moving in with the man in the picture, was believed to be directly caused by the physical padlock. This belief system suggests that a padlock can be used to lock up a person's womb, marriage, career, or financial greatness, tying down their destiny and extending their trials. The use of padlocks as supernatural objects is also documented in the African diaspora. Archaeologists have recovered padlocks from enslaved African contexts in the Western Hemisphere, where they are interpreted as supernatural objects used as a metaphor for locking down evil, bodily functions, or individuals' lives. This practice, a material expression of the notion of tying down a person, is a continuation of African belief systems documented in the 19th century. This trend highlights a key aspect of symbolic objects. A tool of binding can be used for both protection and harm, depending entirely on the intent of the practitioner. Rituals of unlocking and liberation. Where there is spiritual bond, there are also rituals for liberation. Spiritual traditions that acknowledge the malevolent use of padlocks have developed specific practices aimed at breaking these unseen chains and reclaiming personal agency. These counter-rituals often mirror the symbolic power of the padlock, using an act of spiritual unlocking to reverse the negative effects. These rituals are often a form of spiritual warfare, where practitioners use prayer and verbal commands to break the bonds of a spiritual padlock. The prayers are not passive requests, but active commands, demanding that padlocks used to hinder blessings, glory, or progress scatter by fire and break by fire. This demonstrates a belief in the practitioner's divine authority to reclaim their destiny and break any spiritual stronghold. A central element in many of these rituals is the symbolic use of the Key of David. This biblical concept is invoked as a spiritual master key, a symbol of divine authority that can override any spiritual padlock, regardless of its origin. Practitioners use this metaphorical key to unlock and loose their destiny, glory, blessings, and health, thereby reaffirming a higher power's ability to grant freedom. The existence of these rituals for liberation demonstrates a belief in a spiritual arms race where one metaphysical power can counter another. The solution, a spiritual bond created by a physical object, is broken by a spiritual act using a symbolic key, the padlock as a protective talisman and amulet. Conversely, the padlock is also used as a benevolent talisman and amulet for protection and fortune. Its core symbolic power to create a barrier is harnessed for positive outcomes, such as safeguarding a person's well-being or treasures. In Feng Shui, padlocks are used as symbolic objects to lock in good fortune, wealth, love, and happiness. These amulets are designed to help preserve a person's most valuable possessions, relationships, wealth, and happiness, and prevent them from being lost, particularly during periods of energy shifts. They serve as a constant reminder to protect and cherish what is valued, functioning as a tangible symbol of preservation and constancy. The padlock's protective symbolism is also evident in modern magical and esoteric practices. Spells for protection and secrecy often incorporate locks to safeguard personal information, energy, or magical workings. The use of a padlock to ward off evil and negative energies is a common element in such rituals. In the art world, Romuald Hazume's Goddess of Love from Benin uses padlocks as a protective suit of armor, exemplifying a positive ritualistic use for storing and passing on love in the voodoo tradition. The padlock is not inherently good or evil. Its meaning is entirely dependent on intent and context. Its function as a protective talisman confirms its core symbolic power, the ability to create a barrier and make something inaccessible. This principle is applied equally to safeguarding a factory worker's body, a secret, or a couple's love, making it a universal gesture of defense and preservation. The padlock in a digital and metaphorical world. In an increasingly digitized world, the padlock symbolism has evolved from a physical object of security to a pervasive digital and psychological metaphor, proving its symbolic resilience and adaptability. From iron to encryption, the symbolic shift. As technology has rendered physical locks less relevant for certain applications, the padlock symbolism has migrated seamlessly to the virtual realm. The lock icon on a web browser or a digital file is now a universal symbol for a secure, private connection. This is a clear case of symbolic abstraction, where the physical form of the padlock is no longer necessary to convey its meaning. The concept of the key has also persisted, albeit in new forms. Digital encryption, keys, and biometric security systems have replaced traditional locks, yet the key still carries its symbolic weight as a means of access and control in the virtual world. The creation of websites that offer digital love locks for a fee demonstrates how the ritual itself is adapting to a new medium, showing that the core desire to make a public, permanent declaration of love remains, even when the medium is ethereal. This symbolic shift reflects a profound cultural evolution. The treasures we seek to protect are no longer just physical possessions, but our personal data, online identity, and privacy. The padlock icon becomes a modern talisman, offering a promise of security in a chaotic and interconnected digital world. The locked self, a metaphor for the inner world. The final evolution of the padlock's symbolism is its transition from an external tool of control to an internal metaphor for the self. On a psychological and philosophical level, the lock represents personal boundaries, the safeguarding of one's inner world, and the secrets held within. The padlock can serve a dual psychological purpose. A locked padlock may represent a state of isolation, tranquility, or a hidden secret. Conversely, an unlocked padlock can symbolize personal liberation, freedom, and overcoming obstacles. This duality mirrors the complex nature of human emotion and identity. The concept is also applied in modern esoteric practices like shadow work, where a person uses a metaphorical key to unlock hidden or repressed parts of their psyche for healing and self-discovery. The padlock's ultimate spiritual significance lies in its capacity to serve as a metaphor for the human condition. The paradox of the object, its ability to both bind and free, mirrors our own internal struggles with vulnerability, control, and the journey towards self-realization. The lock is not just a tool, it is a mirror reflecting our complex relationship with boundaries and the unseen forces that shape our lives. Conclusion: the enduring power of a simple object. The padlock, a humble invention for physical security, has been consistently imbued with profound spiritual power across millennia. Its enduring significance lies in its ability to physically manifest our most abstract desires and fears. From the ancient practice of safeguarding tombs and sacred texts to its contemporary use in rituals of love and spiritual warfare, the padlock's symbolism is a universal human expression of control, desire, and fear. The duality of the padlock is its defining feature. As a tool of protection, it secures what we value, from a physical treasure to a spiritual truth, and serves as a guardian against negative influences. As a tool of binding, it is used to seal vows of eternal love, but can also be leveraged for malevolent purposes to hinder destiny and prosperity. The key, its indispensable counterpart, embodies the power of access, authority, and liberation, offering a means to overcome the barrier the lock creates. The global love lock phenomenon provides a compelling case study of this symbolic power in action, highlighting the tension between individual expression and collective responsibility. The physical act of locking an object serves as a ritualistic anchor for an abstract emotional state, but the very materiality that gives it power can lead to its demise. This points to a deeper truth. A symbol's spiritual power cannot always overcome its material limitations, especially when a personal ritual scales to a collective problem. Ultimately, the padlock has evolved from a physical object to a potent digital icon and a metaphor for the self. This journey underscores the remarkable resilience of powerful human symbols, which adapt and persist by giving form to our ongoing quest for security, connection, and self-realization. The lock is more than a tool. It is a tangible, ritualistic object that allows us to engage directly with abstract concepts of fate, love, and power, providing a simple yet profound means to act on our hopes and fears. The locked self and the unlocked world. The paradoxical symbolism of the padlock, showing how it functions as both a protector and confiner, representing themes of security, control, permanence, love, destiny, and spiritual struggle. In ancient societies, locks guarded treasures, tombs, and sacred knowledge, symbolizing what was most valued. Keys were seen as powerful tools of access, authority, and destiny, linked to deities, example Janus, Hecate, and Christian theology, example Peter's Keys of Heaven, modern ritual of the love lock. Originating from a Serbian legend and popularized globally in the 2000s, the love lock ritual symbolizes an unbreakable bond between lovers. The act of locking and discarding the key signifies permanence and trust, functioning as a form of symbolic magic. Spiritual and esoteric uses. In some traditions, padlocks are used for malevolent purposes, symbolically locking up health, destiny, or prosperity. Counter rituals of unlocking and liberation invoke divine authority, example, Key of David, to break spiritual bond. Conversely, padlocks also serve as protective talismans in feng shui, magic, and modern practices, preserving fortune, love, and safety. The padlock is a universal symbol bridging the physical, spiritual, and digital worlds. Its meaning depends on context and intent. It can bind in love or curse, protect or oppress, preserve or pollute. The enduring power of the padlock lies in its duality, representing both barriers and openings, confinement and liberation, making it one of the most versatile symbols of human culture. Thanks for listening. Like, comment, and share the Expository.